Welcome to For Real. It's time to communicate and get real about relationships with your host, Liesel, Daisley, and psychologist, Krisnan. So join us for real. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of For Real. I'm your host, Liesel Daisley, and joining me once more is our resident by now psychologist and life coach, Krisnan. Welcome, Krisnan.
Thank you, Liesel.
Such a pleasure having you.
Oh, it was a pleasure being here, and it's a pleasure having you as well.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us once again. What are we talking about today, Liesel?
Ooh, lean in. Get closer. We're talking about sex.
She says we're talking about sex, you know? All right. Well, this is for real.
This is for real.
We get real on this show.
And the reason why I did that actually is because that's normally the reaction when people talk about sex. You know, it's very hush-hush, quiet. You know, people don't want to talk about it openly.
Kind of taboo?
Yes. But today on this show, we're going to talk about it openly. So we're going to ease you into the topic. So first of all, we want to know, can you grow to be passionate about somebody that you're in a relationship with? Let's say if you're not passionate about them initially, but you do like the person and you think that you have a lot in common, but that passion is not there. Can you grow to be passionate about them?
For sure. You can grow to be passionate about anything as long as there's an interest. As long as there's an interest, you can increase that sexual desire.
Okay.
The thing is, if you find that, okay, on the other hand, you might have found that you met somebody and initially you were very, very much interested in them, you were into them, very much attracted, and then something happened, events occurred, and you no longer have any feelings. The reverse can also happen.
Okay.
So you can actually become more interested in someone as you get to know them, as you get to learn about what they're like, and sexual interest is actually not just a thing. Sexual interest is a combination of your things in common. It's a combination of, it includes your going in the same direction, the person's, your impression or perception of the person's helpfulness, interest in you. And sexual interest actually starts from something that we do as children. It starts from flirting. So you know when you do that peekaboo?
Yes.
That is the basis of flirting. So there is a showing yourself and there's a withholding. Showing yourself and withholding.
Okay.
And then it builds curiosity and it builds intensity into the subject, whatever the subject is. So there's a leaning in, as we did just now, there's a leaning into the person to find out, what are they about? And also at the basis of sexual energy now, at the basis of sexual energy is a human instinct. So as long as you are human and you have creative energy, as long as you are energized, you have passion deep within, you can have sexual interest. Sexual interest does not end at a particular age. You might not have the same ability to function, but sexual interest does not wane. As much as your personal interest in the person is there, as long as it's there, you can have sexual interest.
Okay. So since we're talking about sex today, curiosity is killing the cats. All the cats out there dying from curiosity. Do men expect women to be the type of woman that they see in porn movies?
Oh, that's a big transition.
Yes. We're going straight into the meat of the matter.
All right, well, comparison can happen. I think if you've had an experience, you develop a reference point in your mind about the experiences that you've had. So there's a tendency that you will think back to the reference point and you may compare to the reference point. It does not mean that you hold the person entirely to it, but you obviously think back to how does it measure up, interestingly, in size or in performance or in skill to it. But I think beyond that, if you want to say reference point or comparison, then there is, I want this, the person has to be aware, I want this to be enjoyable, to be pleasurable, and I want this to be a new and novel experience.
Okay.
So a person has to do away with that comparison in order to fully enjoy the partner. Once that comparison is there, you are going to be holding them to expectations. That's what it really is, expectations. However, if you can mentally disregard that reference point in your mind, you can start quote unquote on a blank slate, and you can set this as a new experience, set the current partner as a new experience, and not necessarily compare them. So men do it, women compare men, men also compare women, where whether it is performance, energy, size, lubrication, moistness, length of sex, how they perform on whatever skills, whether it is oral or whatever the case is. People do compare, but it's important to get out of the mind, to disregard or to put away the reference point and start a new fresh experience with this person.
Yes, very important. Okay, so people do all kinds of things for sex. They pay for it or for the experience.
Right.
So they would pay for it. They would rent movies. They would watch certain sites. Is sex really that important?
Sex is a primal drive.
Okay.
We are hungry as children. We are hungry as people. We are hungry, thirsty, sleepy. We need to exercise. Sex is one of those primal drives. As a matter of fact, sex is inbuilt in us, and as long as we reach a certain age, unless we have been traumatized or have had some kind of perhaps genetic situation where there are cases where persons can appear to have some genetic disorder. For the vast majority, we all will have sexual feelings because as a primal drive, it is inbuilt in us to continue our human race.
Yes.
To continue our line. And so it is important. Not only is it important as a personal for personal gratification and for continuity, but it also is a source of release. It is a source of pleasure. It's a source of relaxation. Sex can be used to reset the nervous system. People use sex to calm anxiety. People use sex to get over or to reduce the symptoms of depression. People can use sex to numb feelings. People use sex as a physical and emotional, psychological high. So sex is not just something that we do, but it's something that we need once we get to a certain age.
Okay. And how often, if you're in a relationship, should you have sex?
Right, so sex is, for many people, it is a component to emotional connection, feeling emotionally connected. But it's also something that we have a physical desire for, a physical drive, as I said, like hunger. So we feel the need, the urge for sex. For some people, depends on the relationship you're in.
Yeah.
You can feel it throughout the day on a daily basis.
Okay.
People are wired to have sex every day. You can possibly have sex every day. Some people have sex once a day, some people multiple times a day. Of course, as you're sexually active, you're using sexual energy, and that's a conversation I'm probably not going to go into, but you can follow some of my other series and hear about that. Sexual energy is something that is transmuted or converted into energy in the body.
Okay.
So if we use up our sexual energy, not only like for men, do you use up the semen, the sperm, which also energizes them, but you also you reduce or diminish your energy when you have orgasm.
Right.
So sex is something you can do regularly, but you also lose energy when you do it.
Right.
And for some people, if depending on their sex drive, their level of arousal, they can do it multiple times a week. For some women, they say, man, this man, he's want too much sex. Well, the man is built to desire sex.
Yeah.
Some women have high sex drives too.
It's true.
For others, they don't, because perhaps sex isn't enjoyable, or for some, they've been traumatized.
Yeah.
So they have developed a disposition away from it.
Yeah.
And it's important, of course, things like hormones as well come into play. So it's important to understand your body, understand what is normal for you, originally normal for, like, say, when you growing up, and to kind of have a point of reference for what, to how you've developed and where you are at this point in time.
Okay. Sounds like good stuff. Now, sex is a very sensitive topic. So do you, well, still today in 2022 for some reason, do you find that you still encounter people, couples in particular, who find it a sensitive topic to discuss? Because like you mentioned earlier, it's still considered a taboo topic.
Yeah.
So do you find couples still have issues discussing sex and what they prefer and not prefer?
It does happen. I've actually had clients who, in some cases, have struggled with sex because they've had guilt and mental challenges or emotional blocks to being sexually active. In some cases, because of religious beliefs, etc. A person can develop repulsion to sex because perhaps because of beliefs that they've been taught growing up. In some cases, they've been told that they should not have sex as little children, that it will cause them, they're bad for having sex or having sexual feelings. So in some cases, people have been traumatized, and as a result of that, they're uncomfortable about the idea of sex or about the act of sexual activity. A person can also have experiences, unpleasant experiences, not necessarily traumatized, but unpleasant experiences where in their learning stages they didn't have the best of experiences, and that can cause them to develop ill feelings or unpleasant feelings about the act. So you can find that persons who once had relatively active sex drives have become somewhat diminished and suppressed.
Yeah.
As well as guilt from a partner saying, well, you are too sexual, you are too sensual, and so there's a guilt built up about sex, the act of sex and the idea of sex. People tend to relate sex to religious reasons.
Yes.
There's some kind of correlation to sex and religion or spirituality. As a matter of fact, in Indian culture and also in Chinese culture, the idea of the sexual chakra is the root chakra, or the root energy. And from the root energy is creative energy. From creative energy, all other energy rises, or all energy is formed. And so if you are lacking in sexual energy, you're lacking in creativity.
Okay.
You're lacking in the ability to not just create ideas, but also to recreate life.
Okay.
And so some people, there's the belief that when we don't have sexual drive, or we have low sexual drive, we also lack energy in other areas.
This is so much information, but good information. But unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh man.
And we were just getting started, so we may have to come back and finish up this topic, because we could actually go on for a very long time about sex. So thank you so much once again for joining us. It was such a pleasure having you. We hope that you enjoyed our show this evening and that you were able to get some interesting nuggets from Krisnan. Thank you once more, and we look forward to welcoming you back soon on For Real.